Today, something happened. Interestingly, good something happened. So I don't have the circumstances in my life is not great. So I am in the middle of crisis right now. And for the most part, when you are pressured to change, you can't help but to think negatively about yourself. The story about you is actually one of the key that contributing to how you feel about your own situation. So I'm in a so unfortunate situation right now, and the more I tell the story in a negative way, the worse I feel. And I'm like, I don't want to feel triggered by my own story because it doesn't get me anywhere. And I need to be that person who know what to do, when to do it, and get things done. And today, some circumstances happen again, and usually I would go back into that triggering version of myself. Like, I don't navigate it well enough to not sway by the situation itself. So I usually just follow how I feel, and it will ruin my day, and I will never get to do the things that I want to do. I never get to get things done, and I'm like, this sucks. So today I try something different in order to not fall into that state. And because we have talked about something really important yesterday, which is, what do we talk about yesterday? Oh no, my mind is slipping away because I'm currently really hungry. So pardon the intrusion. Wait a minute. The things to get you back on track. So yesterday I talked about the identity, about how you feel about yourself. And today we are talking about the frame of those, of the subject, of the storyline. And what I'm sharing here is not to change literally what was happening in your life. Instead of just tell it differently while still containing the truth of some important moments of how it feels and what the facts is, and just contain all of that but in a different way. For example, I usually put a blame on myself because I can't do something, and I would say really terrible stuff to myself, and I would point fingers into like, you can actually do better in this one, and I fall into that really negative self-talk and have a really terrible time to navigate it because it was never supposed to be that way. And if we reframe that and we have work with the subject, which is ourself, and we talk in this really neutral self instead of that negative extreme self, then we are talking in the way like, you have failed. It's okay. You can actually get back on track again. How do you actually want to do that? That subject who talk that way would get you far forward, far to the future, far near to the future that you want to experience more, instead of being so negative about it. That's one of the ways that I see myself. But also, like, my life was is not the type that was like happy life. You do something, you get something great, because as you know, I was starting this life as a mission driven life where I would go deeper into the darkness and eventually get back up and show it to the people who want to listen. That in itself contains so much negativity that I don't think I can contain. And some of it is true. facts that I can't change. I get into a sexual trauma. It is true that I have a sexual assault in my life. But the way I tell the story, it was so twisted and unlikely to change. And I would not, I couldn't get over the fact that I choose that time, that moment. But if we think in a perspective like we are actually never the person, never the one who told the perpetrator to do that to us. And if we look at the human standpoint, like if you go in life, you get something happen, something happened to you, and it just happened to you. You don't know where it begins. You don't know how the other person, because it contains two people to tango. And this moment, a conflict that happened in your life, contain your perspective, also their perspective. And when you combine these two, you get a neutral perspective, which is how you look at the both sides equally without making the victim to be the victim, not making the perpetrator to be the perpetrator. Like it's like a two exchange energy that meant to happen in the first place, and that's why it happened. It's just like you want something to happen to you, and that person wants something to happen to them, and eventually you guys collaborate and you make something happen, whether it's good, whether it's bad. And for most of my case, most of my life, the case is so terrible, it will lead into really terrible stuff. And the way I tell my story sometimes fall into the victim story, which is like, I have this thing happen to me because I asked this thing, and then I am falling deeper into this, and I dwell on it. I feel terrible about it, and I get to feel my own perspective, which is like what happened to my body, what happened to my thought and my emotion. It was so scrambled that all I can think is I am the victim. But if you can jump into the perpetrator place, like where they are in that story, and you can see like, oh, actually I don't really know how this person feel about the situation. I don't really know what is this person think. And you are creating a question. You're creating a space where the story can change. And eventually you start to come into the middle line, which is you making the neutral story of it. And then if you want, you can go to the perpetrator, you can go to the person who did it to you, who created with you, and have a really complete understanding about what the situation is. And you come into this neutral story where, oh, you are giving this vibe, that person giving this vibe, and then you guys just collaborate in that energy, and that's why it happened in the first place. So that's the neutral story. You can make that with the person or without the person, it doesn't matter. Like you already making space of, I might be wrong. And if you have already reached that stage of like, I can be wrong in this, I can be wrong in this, because how I tell the story is so negative. Like I'm so full in my own emotion, I can't really contain all the facts, all the truth that literally happened, and I just move with my own emotion. And sometimes when you use too much of your emotion, you don't think logically, you don't think rationally. You just like believe what you want to believe. That is a good and that is a bad thing. And according to what you want to do with your story, it can lead into a beautiful story or it can lead into a disaster story. And because my case was really dark and I was too dark in my own mind, and I was too tired actually, because I'm like, I have heard this story for so many times. I never get back on track. I never feel better about it because I tell it in such a negative way. What if I tell it in a neutral way? And I start to create the space by asking question, how exactly this person thought when it actually happened. What is this person think about this thing, about this thing, about this thing? And you start to collaborating in those area, and you begin to have a neutral story. And if that's enough for you to think it for yourself without actually engaging with the perpetrator, then it's enough. And I did that this morning. I did it in the way that I feel negative about my morning, and then I'm like, actually, why would I think about it in this way? It doesn't get me anywhere. I don't feel good about it. I feel terrible no matter where I go with this story. And I'm like, what perspective would actually be more productive than telling the story this way? And I get into a position where actually you don't really want to work it out. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to work it out. Why? Because that still holds a negative stance. Why do you not want to work this out? Well, if I work it out, then I need to face this aspect of the story that I don't want to participate. And if I don't want to do anything with it, why would I actually be in the state? Doesn't matter, right? Exactly. So how I want to think about myself in this situation is that what was I thinking at the time? Because I was so quick in navigating this story that it is that. So in my chart, in my astrology chart, the sun is like my front facing persona. So when you see me warm, you see me like I'm really like that person who shine the lights and all that stuff. But when I'm alone, when I'm in at night, when I'm like in my own my me time, I'm this Aries. So Aries come into like a leadership, like they just know what to do and they want to get what they want. They want to go after the things that they want, and they just like so focus minded. That was the person I tap into, the version of myself that led me into I actually don't want to do that. Huh. Yeah. Like I don't want to work this out. Like if it's fucked up, then we will find any other stuff that can help us doing this. And I've become so focused in my own timeline, in my own situation, that I'm like discarding all the things that is aligned and not aligned, because I tap into that identity. I tap into my Aries identity instead of Leo, where in Leo identity, I was usually that person in the community who hold everything together, who are taking everyone's opinion, everyone's say, everyone's word about it. And then I'm like, okay, how do we can actually do that? And I am literally not putting myself first. I'm like setting myself aside and it's just like work for these people and all that stuff. But in Aries, I was just me. I was just fully on my ego. I don't care about anything else because I know what I want. I know where I'm going. I know what I want to go. I'm just like, I don't fucking care. Like if something happened to us, then we will find a way. We will reach that end no matter what take us to go there. And I'm like, yeah. And this problem right here means nothing for us because we don't care. I'm like, great. And then I stopped crying. And I'm like, okay, that feels better. Now I start creating the storyline around like what is matter to me personally without anyone else opinion, attachment, whatever they want. And I'm just caring about myself because I can't take care of them. If I want to eventually caring their need, their desire, I would be in my Leo persona, but I'm not. And it's a lot easier for me to go with the Aries because I just don't fucking care. If you want to fuck up yourself, then go for it. I don't care. Like, it's not my problem. I don't know you. Like, that kind of stuff, that kind of persona. That's my Aries. And I fall into that even more. And I'm like, this is not my problem. And I stop crying and I'm like, okay. It's not great to have it right here, right now, to re-experience relapsing into the most vulnerable part where we can't contain everyone, and I choose to protect myself. It's somewhat a defense mechanism in the first place, but I realized that deep down, I don't really care. It's weird stuff to say it, but then I found a fact that they say when the situation between me and that person, and I'm like, oh, surely I care too much. And I realized that, and I'm like, okay, then I guess the vision that I hold between me and this person will not come true, because then I'm the person who would only want it happen to be that way. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because when you trying to create something, when you are creating something, it takes two force to create a new experience. And if you are only yourself, you cannot create anything new. You just you. It's never been new. So I'm like, okay, let's give up. Not giving up, because I never even started anything to begin with. But then, yeah, it happened. It happened. I don't care. And I really fall out. I really like end the cycle of my own negative experience, negative situation. And I'm like, in this morning, I literally ending one of the things that took my focus away. And I'm like, okay, we can do it this way, we can do it this way. And I'm falling into this, my resourceful version. And I'm like, I love this actually. Because yesterday I literally began to experience myself more. Like I dive deeper into how to feel about me, how to feel the essence of myself, how to feel the soul of my own self. And because I dive deeper into that, I get into a position where I can create a new story about how I feel about my life. And because the current situation is not so good, I fall deeper into the resourceful version of myself, which is great, because then I get to problem solving mode and I get to move, which is what I want to do. Ta-da! That's the thing that I want to talk about today. And I scheduled this live stream at 3, but eventually we got so late and we are starting at 3:40 something. But we get it done. So yeah. Thank you for watching, and I will see you